Hello, my name is Chi Din. I'm with Avignon Realty Coaching and Training. Today, I will go over the loan assumption addendum. And before I get right into the addendum, if you are not familiar with this addendum, I recommend that you read it over 3 times, look up word that you're not familiar with, and if there's anything that is unclear or you have questions, that you go to your mentor and broker to get those questions answered and get what's unclear clear for you. Right, so now we're going to get right into the addendum. So this is the loan assumption addendum promulgated by the Texas Real Estate Commission, TREC. To start with, to contract concerning the property at the address of the property would need to go here. And then I'm going to go over paragraph by paragraph. Paragraph A, this is credit documentation. To establish buyer's credit worthiness, buyer shall deliver to seller within this amount of days after the effective date of this contract credit report, verification of employment, including salary, verification of funds on deposit in financial institutions, current financial statement, and any other document that will be requested by the seller. Buyer hereby authorizes any credit reporting agency to furnish copies of buyer's credit reports to seller at buyer's sole expense. And that is paragraph A, credit documentation. Paragraph B, credit approval. If the credit documentation described in paragraph A is not delivered within the specified time, seller may terminate this contract by notice to buyer within 7 days after expiration of the time of delivery, and the earnest money will be paid to seller. And if the credit documentation is timely delivered and the seller determines in seller's sole discretion that buyer's credit is unacceptable, then seller may terminate this contract by notice to buyer within 7 days after expiration of the time for delivery, and the earnest money would be refunded to buyer. And then if seller does not terminate this contract within the time specified, seller would be deemed to have approved buyer's credit worthiness. Paragraph C, assumption. Buyer's assumption of an existing note includes all obligation imposed by the deed of trust securing the note. And there's 1 and 2. So 1, the unpaid principal balance of a first lien promissory note payable to, which unpaid balance at closing would be this amount, and the total current monthly payment, including principal, interest, and any reserve deposit is, and this amount, and buyer's initial payment will be the first payment due after closing. Then 2, the unpaid principal balance of a second lien promissory note payable to, in which unpaid balance at closing would be this amount, and the total current monthly payment include principal, interest, and any reserve deposit is this amount. Buyer's initial payment would be the first payment due after closing. So the number 1 is for the first lien, number 2 is for the second lien. If the unpaid principal balance of any assumed loan as of the closing date varies from the loan balance stated above, the cash payable at closing sales price will be adjusted by the amount of any variance. Just need to check one of these. If the total principal balance of all assumed loans varies in an amount greater than $500 at closing, either party may terminate this contract, and the earnest money would be refunded to buyer unless the other party elects to pay the excess of the variance. D, loan assumption terms. Buyer may terminate this contract and the earnest money will be refunded to buyer if the note holder requires 1, payment of an assumption fee in excess of this amount, in C1, or this amount in C2, or and seller declines to pay such excess, or 2, an increase in the interest rate to more than X amount percent in C1, or this percent in C2, or 3, any other modifications of loan documents. Paragraph E, consent by note holder. So if the note holder fails to consent to the assumption of the loan, either seller or buyer may terminate this contract by notice to the other party and the earnest money would be refunded to the buyer. Paragraph F, seller's liens. Unless seller is released from liability on any assumed note, a vendor's lien and deed of trust to secure assumption will be required, and the vendor's lien would automatically be released on delivery of an executed release by note holder. And then there's initialed for identification by buyer and seller. Buyer and seller, we need to initial here. And right here, the property address, the address of the property, we need to go here. Paragraph G, tax and insurance escrow. So if note holder maintains an escrow account for ad valorem taxes, casualty insurance premiums, or mortgage insurance premiums, seller shall transfer the escrow account to buyer without any deficiency, and buyer shall reimburse seller for the amount in the transfer accounts. Notice to buyer, if you are concerned about the possibility of future adjustments, monthly payments, interest rates, or other terms, do not sign the contract without examining the notes and deeds of trust. Notice to seller, your liability to pay the notes assumed by buyer will continue unless you obtain a release of liability from the note holders. So if you are concerned about future liability, you should use the check release of liability addendum. Then buyer and seller signature will go here. Now, that is the overview of the loan assumption addendum. And if you have, again, any questions or anything unclear, I request that you talk to your mentor and broker. Thank you.